Aha, okay. So, hey, welcome to More Geek Than Gay. Bom dia. And I'm just going to get started. So, getting started.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Wimpy whoopy, tiny whiny stuff.
Comics! Yay, comics! So, last weekend, Free Comic Book Day. I think it's like the 15th annual one or something like that. I don't know. I could be very much exaggerating what number Free Comic Book Day this is. But they've been doing it for a while. And so, as I said, am unemployed, therefore my money situation's kind of like, but I still managed to get out. I used a little bit of my pocket change, picked up some of my comics, and picked up a couple free comics, and that was me figuring out what the horrible noise was that was coming from outside, which is actually someone's small child going, da la la la, which, wow, and I apologize to your eardrums for that, but that's what I'm hearing constantly while I'm doing this. Picked up comics. So here's my thought on some recent comic stuff coming up. The really weird variety of comics that I picked up, but what you gonna do? I picked up, comics, Action Cat and Adventure Bug. That is partially because I actually love Art Baltazar's work. I'm familiar with him from doing stuff with Tiny Titans and stuff like that for DC Comics, and so I definitely wanted to pick this up. He's been doing quite a bit of work with Dark Horse Comics, doing I believe Tiny Devil, what's his name? The one that had the movies, and you'd think that Hellboy, not Devil, Hellboy. Let's see, Itty Bitty Hellboy, Itty Bitty Mask. So, and that's what he's been working here. Very enjoyable. If you enjoy those, you're going to enjoy these. These are definitely geared towards being very family appropriate, very child appropriate. My only complaint I could have is that as compared to the stuff that I've read of his in the past, these seem a little bit unfocused. The stories seem to just happen and then not end or not resolve, but that's me being way too critical of something that's just a kid's story, okay? I mean, they resolve, they have endings, there's a little the end at the end. It's just for some reason I'm expecting something slightly deeper, which that's stupid. But that's also what I saw in his other work, so there is a little bit of a precedent here. If you enjoy good kids comics, I'd say give it a shot. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. The artwork is always a hoot, as always. And with Action Cat, as established in the very first issue, there is Action Cat that we see on the cover with his sidekick Adventure Bug, But there also apparently is Action Cat, who's a girl with the exact same name. It's not like Action Kitten or Action Miss Action Cat or something like that. No. She gets to have the exact same name. Because why? Why can't you have the exact same name? Why can't girls and boys have just Captain Super or whatever? So that's kind of an interesting little message there, that there's no reason for her to be any different. So that Action Cat, that's my 2-second review of Action Cat. It takes about that long to read it. Then also picked up IDW's Micronauts, issue number 1. They are launching a whole bunch of comic book ones. They're also going to be doing Action Man, which was a comic or a toy line where there was Action Man, and you could buy different costumes for him, including like I think you could buy like a Batman costume for him and stuff. But then they're also going to be doing ROM, the Space Knight. Micronauts and ROM both were published by Marvel Comics for a long time, arguably more successful as comic books than they were as toys. And I don't have a lot of experience with ROM. Just the toy didn't appeal to me. The comic book, while I've heard great things about the comic book from Marvel, the comic book, I just never warmed up to it. Micronauts, on the other hand, I love the toy Micronauts. I still have a bunch of my Micronaut toys. And so when Marvel did their line, I would read it off and on. Very well done. A little bit Star Wars derivative-ish. But then again, Star Wars, you could argue, was a bit derivative-ish. I mean, it was a general like quest with a hero, a princess, and space aliens, or it was standing in for dragons and wizards. Micronauts kind of did the same thing. You had the hero, and you had the princess, and you had the witty sidekick, the Chewbacca, and then you had the stoic and all that. The one thing that got me always with the original comic book, and then another company put out Micronauts after Marvel lost it, and they started with a brand new one, was there's a character called the Acroyer. The toy line was very clear on Acroyer. Acroyer was the coolest of all the basic figures that you could get. And Acroyer was the villain to the Micronauts. They're point blank tell you on the packaging that he is the villain. Okay? He is the enemy of the Micronauts. They did an Acroyer 2 that wasn't as cool, but then they did Super Acroyer, which was like so cool. It was big, and you could turn it into ray guns and stuff. Oh. And one of the things about Micronauts was they were interchangeable and could transform into other things. This is before Transformers. And so you could take your pieces of Micronauts here and pieces here, especially when you got to the ships and the vehicles and stuff like that. You could take them and take this ship that flies through space, and then we'll move these things here, and then, oh, now it's a vehicle that travels on land, and then, oh, look, I can move these, and I could borrow these from this other action figure over here and put them on here, and now it's a big stand-up robot that I can put all my other action figures in. Micronauts were just, they were the best. Okay, Acroyer, the enemy of the Micronauts. Marvel always made him part of the Renegades and one of the heroes of the Micronauts. Baron Karza was the only enemy of the Micronauts. When the other company came up with their relaunch of the Micronauts, Acroyer was one of the Renegades and one of the heroes of the Micronauts, with Baron Karza being the enemy of the Micronauts. So we have IDW starting their line. And lo and behold, there's an Acroyer who is one of the Renegades and one of the heroes of the Micronauts. And Baron Karza is the enemy of the Micronauts. I don't know why no one can ever get the packaging correct. It's like they never saw the toy that they were basing these comics on that clearly gave him his role. I digress slightly. As a comic book, it's entertaining. It does not grab me like the original series had, or the original relaunch. They've introduced an idea of spirituality to the characters, which, okay, I mean, that's a motivation. There's some sort of... It's not saying that, oh, this is all like God particles and stuff like this. No. There's still micro science and science fiction and everything. It's just that they've also introduced the idea that some of these characters are spiritual. And that, I believe, kind of is some of their motivation. So, okay. It's the first issue. Who knows? But I will say that I wasn't engrossed by it. I know a lot of people who were. I know a lot of people who were excited. But these were also people who were really big Micronauts and ROM fans. There was a ROM comic book that was part of Free Comic Book Day. I haven't read it yet. It looks really good. It looks like it possibly reads a little better than this one does. So I will try to give Micronauts a try again with issue number 2. The artwork is competent, although here's the issue that I have with it. Why it doesn't engross me. I now remember, as I was thinking about the artwork is very Disney does science fiction. It looks like exactly what you would expect from if Disney Studios or Pixar Studios put out their own science fiction thing. The characters are pretty much exactly it. Their dialogue is pretty much exactly like Disney or Pixar or not picking on Disney here, DreamWorks, or any of those. It's very cliche. Okay, everything is pretty much what you would expect. I don't feel surprised, and therefore I don't. That's part of the reason why I don't feel engrossed, is because I don't feel I'm seeing anything I haven't seen before, or I won't see next year from Disney Studios, or Pixar, or DreamWorks, or that other one that I can't think of the name of. So, and my end result on that one, I would say, pick it up, give it a try if you're a fan of the originals. Don't expect to be wowed by the first issue. That's my whole thing. Don't expect to be wowed by the first issue. Then Marvel has relaunched Moon Knight, who was kind of their answer to Batman. And kind of. A very complicated history on the character. Basically, the Mark Spector ends up dying in Egypt at the base of the statue for the moon god Khonshu. Khonshu brings him back to life, and he takes on a couple different personas to gather information, just like how Batman has Bruce Wayne has Matches Malone and all that. He takes on a couple different personas to gather information and work as Moon Knight, a protector of the people, in an all-white garb and he fights crime. We had a whole bunch of different personalities, so they've kind of decided that he's crazy, and that's where this takes off. This relaunch takes off with him in an insane asylum, and Khonshu is talking to him, but Khonshu may be a construct of his insanity. It's comic book, so most likely it's not. Okay, let's be real. He may be insane, but there's probably some sort of truth to everything that we're being shown as far as Khonshu's doing. But I like it. I've been a fan of Moon Knight for a long time. I did not like the relaunch of it that happened in the 90s. Did not was not super moved by the last couple relaunches of Moon Knight. I like the original run, which I think was Bill Mantlo and Bill Sienkiewicz. I might have the writer wrong on who did the original run. But this feels kind of right, even though you're taking it in a different direction. Very curious what issue 2 is going to be like. Issue 2 is on the stands. I haven't picked it up yet. But this is one that I definitely would recommend. It looks like a juicy read, even though we know what, because it's, like I said, it's comic books, he's a hero. We know part of what the answer has to be. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It looks like it's not going to be 100% the way it looks. And that's written by Jeff Lemire with really nice artwork by Greg Smallwood. I'm not familiar with Smallwood, but I recommend this. This is actually my highest recommendation so far of the 3 comics. Then we come to Wonder Woman 77 Special number 3. Ba-ba-da. Okay. DC has been putting out Batman 66, which is a continuation of the TV show. Not quite as humorous, campy, but still definitely in that same vein, and with the same villains and all that. And the artwork is very reminiscent of the show. It's definitely Adam West and Burt Ward as Batman and Robin. And someone came up with the idea of doing Wonder Woman 77 as a continuation of the Wonder Woman TV show of the 70s. Now, Batman 66 is a monthly. They don't do Wonder Woman 77 as a monthly. They do it as, I believe, a quarterly special. This is the 3rd one. I have the first 2. If you get a chance, pick these up. These are good. This is a Wonder Woman better written than Wonder Woman's been written in a long time. Definitely better written than Wonder Woman's been written since the relaunch of the New 52. And even before the relaunch of the New 52. While still being loyal to the feel of the TV show, she looks like she looks like Linda Carter in most of these. Not always, but in most. She gets to fight real villains as compared to just the made-up science villain of the week like she did on the TV show. Now she gets to fight Clayface, and she gets to fight Cheetah and stuff like that because they don't have to worry about a budget. But the diving suit that she wore on the TV show, she wears it. There's 4 stories in this. She wears it in 2 of them. Okay. Definitely a strong read. There's 4 different stories by 4 different artistic teams. So there's going to be ups and downs in what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. But the artwork is very strong, very consistent. The storytelling, I think, is top-notch. Like I said, they're doing the best Wonder Woman stories that we've seen in like at least 5 years in this. And yeah, it's just really enjoyable. And it takes place in 1977, so every once in a while you get to see some groovy fashions. It's more expensive than a regular comic book. It does run like $8. But realize it's quarterly and you get 4 stories in it. So you're getting more for your bang, more bang for your buck, there we go, than you would with a normal comic book. Highly recommend Wonder Woman 77. Then, final review moment. We've got The Creeps, which is actually more of a magazine in the feel of Warren Comics, creepy, Vampirella, eerie. Matter of fact, they even state that it is in the vein of the Warren comics. It's a horror anthology comic. I think there's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stories in this. They get artists who were involved in the original creepy and eerie magazines, writers that were involved in it, as well as new stuff. All of this is original. As with all of those magazines, the quality of the stories varies. The tone of the stories varies, even though they're all horror. There's some that are very much your old Tales from the Crypt style, where there's others that are a little bit more avant-garde. There's some that are a little bit more dark psychological. And it's, like I said, up and down as far as quality. They have their own crypt keeper type person, dear old creep, who introduces most of the stories, if not all the stories. But I think there was like at least one I saw that did not have an introduction by the creep. And I would say give this a chance. One of the best selling parts of this, okay, is, remember I said 10 stories. You're getting kind of a Warren, creepy, eerie vibe. If you've been missing horror comics or horror magazines, this is definitely the way to go, because we also have a Frazetta cover. Frazetta did a lot of those things. And the price, $5. $5 a month. Okay? Even if only 50% of it works for you, that's still going to be cheaper than you would get elsewhere. It is all black and white. If you got an issue with black and white, get over it. Black and white's great. So, highly recommend The Creeps as well. Just realize it's an anthology. It'll be up and down in quality, just like all those old anthology magazines were. Want to quickly talk about a little bit of comic book news that's coming out. First of all, Marvel has announced that they're going to be doing something called The Death of X. Later this year, it's going to be apparently spinning out after Civil War II, which is like gearing up right now. And there's a lot of rumors that a lot of people are suspecting that this is going to be them trying to get rid of a lot of their mutants and replace everything that they can with Inhumans, because again, they don't own anything X-Men. That still is a Fox property, and they just have been very clear on the fact that they don't like promoting properties that are not theirs to make movies out of. Okay, so do I think that there's no way that they're going to cancel all the X-Men titles? First of all, there's just no way. They're way too popular. I don't care if you don't like promoting the movies with your comic books. You're not going to want to lose all that revenue. So definitely not going to drop all the X-Men titles. Will they drop some? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Will they figure out a way to... they dropped Fantastic Four, which admittedly has not been a strong seller for years, but at the same time, it was a traditional seller. It was the first Marvel comic of the Marvel age of comics, and it doesn't exist anymore. They disbanded, and the Thing is with one group, and I believe the Human Torch is hanging out with another group. Bam. So don't be surprised if they figure out a way to disband a lot of things with the Marvel mutants and just keep like Wolverine and the X-Men and Deadpool. Just 3 titles. Bam. And everything else will be just dismantled and just spread to the winds. That said, we know nothing. We know nothing other than... it's going to be coming out later this year. They've released a couple covers online, and that it will be incorporating a whole bunch of titles. Like, I think almost every title that you can think of Marvel having right now will be involved in this Death of X. So it could be nothing. It could be nothing. It could just be the death of someone with the last name X. I don't know. But one of the covers does seem to feature the return of Jean Grey as the Phoenix. there we go. That's the end of my speculation on that. I do think, though, that there is a good chance that they will use this to get rid of a bunch of X titles and spread them around into other areas. The other big deal is DC is going to be doing Rebirth. Yay! This was a free preview that you could get at Free Comic Book Day, which shows you all the cool things. I want everything. I want everything. I want to give everything a try. This is so much... Okay, I know that this is not supposed to be a relaunch. Okay, it's not supposed to be undoing 52. But it looks like what they're going to do is they're going to take the new 52 and figure out a way to try to merge as much of the pre-new 52 into it as possible. And that's great. I have no problem with the idea of kind of bringing things up to par, yet at the same time, as long as you don't just abandon everything that happened before. Wonder Woman has not been good since the New 52. And while the writer did an interesting take, it wasn't Wonder Woman. Okay? Superman's just been a whiny ass since. Everything's been so dark. It's so not enjoyable. Here, it looks like we're bringing back Batman. We're bringing back Superman to the way they were. Wonder Woman looks like she will be brought back the way she was, largely. They're going to be having the Super Sons, which will feature Damian Wayne, who's the son of Bruce Wayne, and then John Kent, who is the son of Lois Lane and Clark Kent from a pre-New 52 universe. Green Arrow is going to be going back to his goatee look. Where a lot of these titles, though, the bad thing about this is they're going to be doing a whole bunch of titles twice a month. It looks like they're going to try to bring everything back down to being just $2.99. That's great. But if you want to get everything, you're actually going to be paying... Like, if you want Batman, you're going to be buying that twice a month, except for he also appears in Detective Comics, which will be going back to its old numbering, just as Action Comics is going back to its old numbering. So you're going to want Detective Comics, you're going to want Batman Comics, and both of those are being published twice a month, so you're not going to be just spending $3 for one and $3 for the other. You're going to be spending $6 for one and $6 for the other every month. Same thing with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is going to be going to twice a month. Superman, twice a month. Action, twice a month. Flash, twice a month. Harley, twice a month. They're launching a new comic book called Trinity that's going to feature Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman as like the adventures of those three going off. Hopefully they're getting rid of the stupid Wonder Woman, Superman romance. Hopefully that will just go away and we'll pretend it never happened and we'll never have to deal with it again. And then we have Red Hood and the Outsiders. I think that's what it's still being called. That featured Jason Todd originally with Arsenal and Starfire. And what they're doing now is they're relaunching it as kind of a twisted version of that Trinity. It's going to be Jason Todd as the Red Hood, and then a Bizarro and Artemis as a renegade Amazon. And Artemis was in pre-New 52. She was kind of an uppity renegade Amazon who took over who was assigned the role of being Wonder Woman for a little while. So I'm a little bit intrigued by that one. I have to admit, I'm really excited. I hope I get a new job really fast so I can buy all the comics for Rebirth. That's actually the most exciting news I've heard from DC in a long time. So, and I think it'll make Convergence / Divergence make sense that big event that they did a couple years ago, and it'll make everything work out finally, and hopefully bring back a lot of the old fans like me, and keep the new fans that got interest when DC decided to make things a little bit grittier, a little bit like their Marvel version of DC. So it looks like they're getting rid of a little bit of the Marvelization, but they're gonna keep some of that level while giving all of us old timers a little bit of that back, and hope that we just kind of merge everything together. I'm good with this. I think ultimately it may end up being a very smart decision from DC that took a couple years to reach its final fruition, but more power to them. Yeah. So that's comic books this week. That was much more comic book talk than I thought it was going to be, but I had a lot more comic books than I normally talk about. I want to talk about comic books all the time. That's me. So clearly this is going to be a comic book heavy episode. But that's comic books for now. Let's move on.